Thanks. We find ourselves in a time of unprecedented crisis, and people have been on lockdown for weeks. Most businesses have closed their doors and continue to endure enormous financial losses. They don't know when they can get back to normal or even if they'll survive. Hundreds of thousands of people are out of work, and there are so many uncertainties. But despite those uncertainties, there are a few things that are very clear. This crisis isn't going away anytime soon, and SMEs are going to be the major losers if we don't act immediately to save them. The response from the Department of Business to this reality has been poor. It's shocking that, other than the few initial announcements made at the start in the first couple of weeks of this crisis, no real solutions have been offered to SMEs almost 2 months in. The three main schemes that were announced are not fit for purpose. The Credit Guarantee Scheme and the Microfinance Ireland Loan Scheme have interest rates that are too high for most SMEs to even consider, Minister. The Credit Guarantee Scheme allows for lending using criteria and interest rates set by the banks before this crisis hit. Microfinance Ireland loans are charging between 4.5% and 5.5% interest rates. The future growth lines are designed for planning for 8 to 10 years into the future. None of these options reflect the reality facing thousands upon thousands of SMEs in the state at present. And if you need proof of that, you don't need to look further than the Department's website, which is tracking the take-up of COVID-19 schemes. According to the uptake tracker, as of the 23rd of April, only 209 loans had been approved in total. The uptake for the Credit Guarantee Scheme is unclear because the figures provided for approvals give figures going back to 2012, bizarrely. And I wonder, Minister, do you have the figures of approval since the scheme was repackaged or re-announced in terms of COVID, or have you made inquiries as to what those figures would be? The Sustaining Enterprise Fund has had 1 application, according to the tracker. The SBCI COVID-19 Working Capital Scheme has had 56 approvals. Microfinance Ireland loans have had just 153 approvals. Now, obviously, the number of applications are higher than the number of approvals, but not by a very high margin. Just over 2,000 overall have availed. They're remarkable figures, Minister, at a time when tens of thousands of businesses are in major difficulty. Businesses are accumulating debt now, businesses have no cash flow now, and they'll fail unless something radical is done right now. The uptake of the figures, Minister, should tell you all you need to know and should be a wake-up call. Other countries have managed to introduce interest-free lending options for small businesses within a week, and the process was streamlined to ensure that the businesses could have the money in their accounts within days of making their application. That's what we need to do. 80% of small business cannot make their quarterly rents this period. That should send another alarming message to you, Minister. So my questions are straightforward. Businesses need access to interest-free loans and grants, relief on overheads and bills, and a debt write-down to those who have accumulated debt. So what plans have you, Minister, to ensure that interest-free loans or loans with very low interest are available to SMEs for the rest of this crisis and thereafter? What plans has the Minister to introduce a grant system for businesses who need access to cash now? A reopening grant, Minister, costs needed for reopening. Have you considered that that should be grant-aided? Have you plans to issue grants for that? And will you, Minister, introduce a moratorium on overheads, on rates, on rent, insurance to minimise the accumulation of debt for SMEs during this crisis? And what plans do you have, Minister, to allow for a debt write-down to ensure that businesses will not fail during this crisis? I don't want any more spin, don't want any more waffle, don't want any more half-baked solution. Clearly, given the uptake of the figures for the uptake, shows that the proposals and the solutions you put forward are not acceptable to businesses in this current climate. They're not what they need. And I have people, we've all spoken to people. People with small businesses are just sick with worry over this, Minister. And we've all had people, I have business people contact me daily, whether they be gym owners, whether they're hairdressing saloon, transport companies, hospitality businesses, they're all terrified that their business are going to fail, and they're terrified that their staff will lose their jobs, and they need help now. The consequences of not providing the solutions that I've outlined, Minister, are enormous for small businesses, and we have to avoid mass closures of businesses, or the economy will not recover, and certainly not recover for the foreseeable future. We can't allow hundreds of thousands of people to remain unemployed. The knock-on effects on the economy and on people's lives will be dire. Minister, you had said at the start that the right supports, you want to implement the right supports at the right time. This is now the time.